Yes, good morning and welcome. You're watching Daybreak. It's time to take a look at the headlines this morning and the issues behind the headlines. The full story. 4 men gathered at a home in Migori on the day university student Sharon Otieno was abducted and murdered. 3 of them are in custody while 1 is yet to be arrested as the 2 mystery men believed to have carried out the actual killing. Wow, that's one on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Governor Okoth Obado expected in court this morning. He has spent the weekend in police custody and is expected to be charged in relation to that killing. This is the big story, and if you go to the story on page 2 and 3 of the Daily Nation, it reads like a movie script. Wow. This, because you see a sequence of events that culminated in Sharon's murder. The Daily Nation has actually dedicated the front page, pages 2 and 3, just to that story. Cruel death, portrait of family torn by loss of cherished mom and daughter. Sharon keen in fear after gang attacks vocal uncle. These are the headlines we're seeing on the Daily Nation this morning. On the Standard, something very different. 31 graft arrests, fun fears over what you eat. Yes, graft detectives round up KRA, KEBS and KP officials over food and other items cleared to enter Kenya, yet they were deemed to be substandard and dangerous to health. They include rice, sugar, spaghetti and noodles. These are the common foods you eat daily. 7,000 tons, 314 containers of substandard rice, mainly from Pakistan and some from Thailand. This is about 6.2 million kilograms, and this is the kind of food you get on supermarket shelves every day. For our news review panel this morning, Millie Odhiambo, MP Suba-North. Good morning, it's good to see you. And Joey Mdivo, a lawyer and current affairs commentator. We're also hoping to get one more person. We'll introduce them once they get to studio. But let's start off with the kind of issues we're dealing with. 31 graft arrests, and these are senior managers of KRA, Kenya Revenue Authority, Kenya Bureau of Standards, Kenya Ports Authority. The story continues on page 5. And the DCI billions worth of fake goods are on sale. A wide array of consumer goods and home appliances, and this goes beyond just food, in retail shops could be fake. Detectives have announced suspect goods worth billions imported between December 2017 and last month. And they're talking about even TV sets, stationery, vacuum flasks, textile products, electronics, mobile phones, diapers, headphones, cooking oils, sanitary towels, chocolate, garments and alcoholic beverages, milk powder, juice drinks, wheat flour, cereals, protective paints, detergents. Surely everything, it's like everything we're consuming in Kenya, according to what they say, is fake.
What
or at least substandard. But the question is, of course, the DCI has to be commended for what he's done. 31 graft arrests, and these are senior managers at the KPA, KRA, and KEBS. But the question is, we've seen every single day arrests and more arrests, either to do with corruption, to do with murder, to do now with this contraband, illegal importation of sugar, with all these things. But we are yet to see anything tangible in as far as conviction is concerned. Don't you think that at some point we'll get used to such headlines, but then we lose track of what's happening?
No, you are speaking as a media personality, because once a matter is in the limelight, it's headlines. But once it's no longer headlines, it disappears from your view. If you're in court, the wheels of justice will carry on grinding slowly. It's just upon, for example, an investigative journalist to keep tabs on when the case is coming up so that they're able to keep the story alive. Yes. But once somebody has been arraigned in court, the conviction will take time. If the conviction is arrived at, it usually takes time, because it's not just this case that's in court. It found others pending, and it found others already going on. So it's one of those things that it's pressure cooker situation.
Yes.
It takes some time.
So we have to wait for this, because and that's why we lose it as Kenyans, because yes, the expectation is that fine, this is big news. It's on the front pages, we're eating fake food, we could be poisonous. But then after that, we forget about it. This case might come up next year. Who's even going to be following up?
Well, I think for me what I can say is that if you compare with the past, what you're saying is true. But then now we have a new DPP. So let's see how far he goes with it. And especially because his new spate of arrests span less than a year. So if we can take that into account, give a chance for the justice system to work. And then we see how it goes. But then again, for me, the challenge is on the media, on keeping these stories alive. I know for the media what is, you know, you look for the latest, like now it's Obado, you know, and it's, I guess maybe the Sharon story stayed quite a long time. Because of the gruesome nature and because it also involved a child, and then there's a governor in the mix. So it's actually stayed very long. But ordinarily it would have disappeared. So what I would urge is the media should also join in the war or the fight against corruption by keeping tabs, just like Joyce said, over, you know, or the ongoing cases. Yeah.
But don't you think that sometimes even these headlines, with such a headline, that probably if any group of people feel aggrieved that the headlines are targeting them, and they feel that Kenyans should forget about this, they could actually manipulate and ensure there's a different headline that is bigger tomorrow? Because that's what happens. You find maybe those involved in this, those arrested, don't want this to continue. So they ensure something else bigger happens so that this one is confined on page 7, 12, where no one else reads. The follow-up is there, but it won't create as much attraction as it should. Don't you think that, especially with the kind of corruption cases we've dealt with this whole year, that headlines have been used, fresh headlines have been used to make us forget about the old ones?
Like this headline is being used to make us forget what happened in Parliament last week.
Exactly.
And the Kenyans are still wondering, Heshimiwa bwana.
Exactly.
Mulituuza.
We would have expected the taxes, which are now becoming a reality, that we should be seeing them on the front page.
Exactly. Now it's the Kamata weekend.
Yes.
That was
Well, I guess just what you are saying is for the media, a lot of things dictate what goes into the media. So you have these major arrests, and then you put them on the media, and as Joy is saying, that we forget about what happened. And once we forget what happened, we also forget actually the facts, because now you have just said, waheshimiwa mulituuza, yet actually majority of MPs stood with the citizens.
Well, a majority would have made 233, enough to veto that.
Exactly.
So
did you see the eyes, or did you see the eyes and the nays? Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem?
We watched it
so you don't even try to go there. Don't change the script.
We will definitely
the script
look at
here
it.
is actually, for me, even for those who want to go to court, the going to court should actually even be on the 115. I think we misinterpret that 115. That 115, actually, the people who should have marshaled it, in my interpretation, if you read Article 115, should be the people affirming what the president wants. So it's actually not the nays. It should have been the eyes of getting 115 if you read Article 115. So I'm glad, actually, that people are already pushing that into court. But other than that, actually, if you actually looked at what happened, we did marshal. Okay. I have the list. We did marshal 200.
And we'll be coming to that shortly, because there are quite a number of headlines. They are nowhere on the front pages. And this is surprising. It's like both dailies have moved on from that. Yes, nothing, no mention at all of what happened on Thursday. No mention at all on the front pages of the fact that we are now paying much more in terms of other things, and we expect to pay even more at the end of this month when the deductions start for the housing fund. We'll be looking at that because it is there in the inside pages. Page 3 of the Standard, workers who will be locked out of Uhuru Housing Scheme. Other pages I've seen there, the DCI, CS Rotich defending controversial tax showdown looming over slash in county funds. We'll be looking at that because MPs were very clever to ensure that provisions that affected them were left out, but now counties are crying because a huge deduction went their way. But before that, let's take a look at what is on the front pages. So on the Standard, we're talking about contraband, fake items making their way into Kenya. We're talking about 7,000 tons of fake products, including food items, imported from Pakistan and Thailand and other places. And this is what is selling on our shelves. This is what we eat on our dinner tables. And this apparently has happened only between December last year and last month. Yes, 7,000 tons. And this is it just goes to show how lax, how the systems in Kenya work. That everyone positioned in KRA, KEBS, KPA, they just feel it's just a usual run of the mill, that no one really goes out and actually says, where's the patriotism? That when you get to work at such a crucial institution where you're supposed to check about the quality of things coming into Kenya, you just decide, it's no big deal. Anything can come through.
No, you know, there's a song that was sung once that I've learned from the best. I think it was by Whitney Houston, where you watch somebody and you perfect the art of something by watching somebody you deem better than yourself. Kenyans for years have sat and watched people in authority work with impunity, look for loot money and amass for themselves, thinking nothing about free primary education, or it's maternity money, or it is money for the poor. We've had scandals for money for the youth. It's been absolutely ridiculous. And what has entered into the psyche of Kenyans now is, I'm by myself, I'm working out for myself. And so if you're in a position where you can look for something for yourself, you don't worry about, you can tell the people in your family, by the way, don't touch this and that rice, it's absolute poison. But for those who do not know, you're like, you know what, not my monkey, I'm not dealing with it. And that selfishness and that self-interest is something that we have been accumulating over the years. I remember when I was growing up, it was during the Moi era, and it always used to have something to the tune of look out for others more than you. Even the mantra of, yes, be your brother's keeper. And those days, there was that camaraderie of, even if you're doing something for yourself, look out for the one behind, next to you. The simple things like ukikata mti moja, panda mbili. We had that sense of, we are taking care of this for not just ourselves, but collective. For the... But now, if you're like... the contraband business, not just in Kenya, around the world, is a multi-billion-dollar industry. People want to make counterfeit stuff at a lesser standard, at a lower cost, to maximize profit. Those people are unscrupulous. When they come to Kenya, they've known, you get it in the port, you get it certified, you con people on the duty, because for KRA, the only part there is cheating on the excise duty. And once it's in the market, you make your money back. So it all comes to the heart of the selfishness, the impunity. And that's why I'm glad when the arrests happened, they are not, oh, there was this container, it was bad, and you see the importer and one guy at the port arrested. No, this goes to the people who sign the documents and say, you know what, let that consignment come in. And I hope they break these cartels for good, because they have held this country at ransom for way too long. Yes.
And it also goes to, it says something about Kenya's patriotism. That sense of patriotism, I need to do this because I'm a Kenyan and I'm doing it for the greater good of my nation. Does that really exist? Could it be part of the bigger problem that we just feel, I'm just alone, I'm a Kenyan, mimi ndangangana na hizi taxes by myself, whatever method, whatever loophole I find, I will use it to my advantage. I don't care about the rest of the country.
I think it goes back to, basically, I've been very consistent about this here, the issue of impunity. The issue of a collapse of a value system in this country. We don't care anymore because we know that I will never be held accountable. The level of impunity is just amazing. And I can't say much. For instance, let me get back to, for example, this Sharon's story. If indeed what these guys are saying about the Sharon story is true, then even the clumsiness about how it was executed shows, this is a script that shows that there are people who are feeling that I can never at any time be held accountable. We have reached a level as a country where we believe I can literally get away with murder, because people have gotten away with murder. And so how much, if I can get away with the real murder, what about what you call a lesser crime like importing counterfeit goods? My only worry is where we are now dealing with food, and food can wipe out millions of people. If you bring food that is contaminated, then we are actually likely to wipe out millions of people just through this process. So for me, really, as a country, we must look back into what is our value system, and then also see how the issue of the social media plays out. There are things that people usually pass on in the social media like it's a joke, and what we pass in mainstream media. Like we've talked about it before on the issue of sponsorship. You know, we validated it. We have accepted it as a way of life. We have accepted it as normal. We have normalized all the, you know, negative things. And I noticed that even when I was talking about it, people are like, just talk about the murder. Don't talk about sponsorship, because sponsorship is normal.
Something different.
No, it's normal. We've normalized
Yes.
what is not normal. And I think it's, so we need to even look at the things we kind of say in social media, you know, jokingly, pambana na hali yako. You know, once you say pambana na hali yako, bora uhai. Yeah, those kind of phrases, we should not normalize them. It's not normal. Sio bora uhai. Sio pambana na hali yako. It must be about the country, and it must be about the value system that we want to put in as a country.
Where did it start with Kenya? Because we could draw comparisons with what happened in Tanzania, that issue of ujamaa. And back then, back in the 1950s, 1960s, even in Kenya, we tried something like that, coming together for the greater good, and we called it Harambee. But it appears we lost it at some point. Our friends in Tanzania, I think when it comes to such issues, they're more together. But in Kenya, it's every man for himself. Why is that? Where did we lose the plot?
Tanzanians embrace something called udugu, where it's not just the Harambee, you know, with us, we come together when there's an issue, when there's a crisis. But with them, they ingrained it in their system where I've visited Tanzania several times. And one thing I can attest, I have never ever heard Tanzanians speaking vernacular when I was around. Maybe they speak in private, I don't know. But everybody you meet speaks to you in Swahili. Nobody even looks at you and says, maybe you look like Mchaga, and then they throw in a word of Kichaga to see if you'll give it back. On our side, in as much as we had the Harambee spirit, we also very much still maintained our ethnic identity, which is a good thing because you want to know your history and where you've come from. But at the same time, it was used to galvanize us and to mobilize us for people's selfish gains. And so to do that, you have to whip up emotions, tell truths, half-truths, and whole lies to get people to mobilize, because it became the lowest common denominator. What that has done, it's degenerated further now to individual pockets, where before you would say this ethnic group is coming together towards this goal. Maybe we are looking to install somebody in the big house or to do what. But now it's gotten to a place where people are looking out just for themselves. So even in trying to help somebody to attain something, it's not just for their sake. You're like, when you're there, we are all waiting down here for this and that. And what has happened now is we've come to a place in Kenya where our capitalism, our sense of capitalism has gone to an extent where for the profit you will do anything. And that's what we see with our, like what Mheshimiwa is saying. If a young girl thinks that she needs a sponsor in order for her to live a life, and I think there was one media house that ran such a show, and showed the people on the show, university students said, by the way, for the kind of lifestyle that I want to live, for the things that I want, if the trade-off is I just have an affair with this man, I'm quite happy to do that. The things I was taught when I was growing up, where you preserve yourself, you work hard, forget your boyfriends until you're ready to settle down, those things you'll find even the mothers are telling the girls, changamka, you use what you have, make hay while the sun shines. You'll not be young and beautiful and supple forever. Do this now, because one day you will settle down. It's a breakdown
our
of the
entire value system is just all over the place.
No, it collapsed. We have no value system as a nation. That is actually until we find a formula of getting back our value system as a nation. We are headed for trouble. Where the good is seen as the bad and the bad seen as the good. Kenya, we must get back to the conscience as a nation. We must have a conscience as a nation. That is our challenge as a country, that we must have a conscience as a nation.
That is true.
31 graft arrests, fund fears over what you eat. That's the front page of the Standard. The full story, Okoth Obado expected in court this morning. That's a different one. And we'll be looking at that in a short while. I want us to take a break so that when we come back, we take a look at this, plus what happened in Parliament last week, because that definitely will affect your life, whether you like it or not.